So it was announced yesterday that deaths from alcohol in England have hit a record high. And this is something I've actually wanted to speak about for a long, long time, and that is English drinking culture. And I guess as an extension, I'll say English, British, and Irish drinking culture, because it's all pretty similar. Although I will say the like history of English drinking culture is a bit different from Irish. At the same time, I want to talk about this because, as many people know, English drinking culture is absolutely like obscene. And I'm not surprised it's getting worse due to things like, austerity, the economy, just how general life is going, and also like pretty horrible trends from COVID lockdowns where people did increasingly drink larger amounts just like on their own and stuff. And that became more, I wouldn't say socially acceptable because it's always been fine, but something that became more normal. And as the prices of pints and just everything in pubs goes up, it's more attractive now to drink larger quantities for cheaper at home or go around someone's house and drink. So yeah, it's not surprising things like deaths are increasing, but I just wanted to have a conversation today because I'm someone who, I'm not sober, but I don't drink anymore. And I probably had my like heyday of drinking probably say when I was like 16 years old. I've never been like a much of a dancer, so I never liked clubbing. So at university, I actually drank a lot less than most people would. I did most of my drinking as a younger teenager. By the time I left university, I just didn't really want to drink anymore, and I kind of didn't. And now, if I ever go to a social occasion, I pretty much don't drink at all. And I won't even have like one drop of alcohol. I'll have like, maybe an energy drink or a couple energy drinks or whatever. And generally, as I've become more aware of like my OCD, which is something that developed in my early 20s pretty prominently, I just don't really like putting something in my body that makes me like lose control or makes me just feel terrible the next day. And I guess that's also getting older. I've seen this sentiment shared by other people. As you get older, you have less and less free time. You don't want to spend a whole Saturday or a whole Sunday just in bed hungover. So I would imagine my tolerance for alcohol is actually really low. I think I had like 2 drinks this year. And I'm not going to drink over Christmas. And, we're in the depths of the Christmas season. Many people will be getting pissed on work Christmas parties and also on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I do think England does have a bad problem with drinking culture. I'm not like, a Puritan. I mean, I'm not in the real world. But in theory, I actually would say if you said to me, you can snap your fingers and alcohol can just be gone from the world, I'd definitely do it. Because all the positives of alcohol, whether that be like, the culture around being more like sophisticated with your wine from like Mediterranean Europe and stuff, all that stuff, or like the social element, I think that is massively dwarfed by all the problems alcohol causes. The health problems, the early deaths, the addiction problems, alcoholism, how many deaths it caused from like dangerous driving and drunk driving and stuff like that. I don't think there's really any argument you could make in an ideal world people would be able to drink alcohol as free as they do. At the same time, we see the problems with things like prohibition in the US where, like with many things like the war on drugs, the war on alcohol just makes the problem worse, where people still drink at similar rates. They just start drinking stuff that is like 50% petrol or something, right? So I'm not supportive of an alcohol ban, but in theory, I would support an alcohol ban. And I remember I never really used to think about this, but then there was like this Muslim preacher up London. He gave me a leaflet and I read through it and it just had all the statistics about alcohol related like domestic abuse and like violence. And I was just like, holy shit, like there's no lies being told in this. Not that I was going to convert to Islam, but I'm just like, this is like such a good argument against alcohol. Personally, it's not why I don't drink. It's not that I can't control myself. I just don't like it. But when the economy gets worse as well, people turn to drinking more. And that is really combined with the history of this country and alcohol. The reason we are basically a nation of socially accepted alcoholics is because industrialisation was absolutely insane in England. I don't think a lot of countries can fully appreciate, especially when you go up north, there are so many cities that were so industrialized, that are so close together, and they all had massive amounts of industry, and this like urbanization and industrialization that took place crammed so many people into terrible conditions where, of course, when you do that and you make life like a living hell, what are people going to do? They're going to be drinking. And even before industrialisation, there was a massive culture of drinking alcohol because, yeah, a lot of the water was really fucking dirty in this country. England's relationship with alcohol is pretty much something that got put on steroids by the advent of modern day capitalism. But I just want to go through the context of why I'm talking about this recently. So an article by the BBC came out on the 19th. Deaths from alcohol at record high in England. There has been a catastrophic rise in deaths caused solely by alcohol in England over the past 4 years. Again, COVID lockdown as well. More than 8,200 people died because of alcohol in 2023, which was a 42% rise on 2019, with the North East having the highest rates. The Alcohol Health Alliance UK says alcohol consumption could be reduced if a minimum price for each unit was introduced, as it was in Scotland. The government says it's unacceptable that alcohol deaths are at a record high, and it will prioritise public health in its 10-year plan for the NHS. During the pandemic, deaths caused by alcohol rose sharply across the UK. Heavier drinkers were drinking more, while others, including more moderate drinkers, cut down or gave up. And when pubs were shut, many people stayed at home buying alcohol in shops and drinking at home. Since then, deaths have continued to go up in England, although more slowly. Most deaths are among men who are dying early before the age of 75 from alcohol-related liver disease. So yeah, as I was saying, a lot of these things are affected by economic circumstances. We have the historic of it's very hard to get through life for many people without using some sort of substance, whether that be some sort of recreational drug or more socially acceptable alcohol or cigarettes and stuff like that. And as life gets harder for people and just life becomes more bleak in terms of there's not hope for the future. There's not hope of owning your own home for a lot of people. There's not hope of you getting a better job or the country even getting better. So you're going to turn more and more to something that makes you feel good in the short term and really not care about the long-term health benefits. Because, yeah, at this point, most of us know alcohol is bad for you. And alcohol is pretty terrible for you health-wise. Same with cigarettes. But why are people dying at higher rates now, even though we're more health-aware? It's loads of other factors. But one thing I want to talk about before we go back to the economic stuff and talk about the history a bit more, the drinking culture in the UK is just insane. And of course, it can be a result of all the things we're talking about, but the culture wouldn't just go away if you solved these problems. Now, in the UK, we do have pretty bleak winters, and I don't really get seasonal depression, but it getting dark at like 3:45 in the winter is annoying. For me personally, I just like going running or walking in the park. But even then, it's not even just the coldness, it's that everyone like congregates at a certain time. So if I go to the park for a walk at like 3 p.m, it's just rammed. Where in the summer I can go at like 7 p.m, no one there, nice weather, still warm, and you just enjoy your life a bit more. So with the weather being so bad, people just, they go looking for something to do inside. And as many places in the UK, luckily for me, I live in a place with lots to do, but many places in the UK, there isn't much to do. So you go to the pub and you get shit-faced. And that is what socialising looks like for many people in the UK and in Ireland. And there's actually a post I've been hanging on to for a while, and I just thought it was relevant, and some of the comments as well. So I hate the drinking culture in GB and Ireland. I want to start this by saying I'm 5 weeks sober and trying to quit. Drinking culture is something that is so ingrained into both our islands' cultures, and I hate the fact it is. I've been trying to quit drinking, and the temptation is everywhere. I've even had friends trying to pressure me into drinking. Surely you'll only have the one. When I've told them I'm trying to quit, I've had other friends question me, why are you not drinking? Is something wrong with you? Just because I don't want to drink. My friends since haven't invited me to any of their nights out because I don't drink, but that might be a blessing in disguise. Temptation is even there at work. It's like I can't escape it. In my job at the minute, a wet lunch is a common theme. I've been asked by my colleagues, why have you gotten so odd then? When I hadn't bought a drink with my lunch in the first week, I almost feel like people are looking down on me for choosing not to drink, or that I'm some oddball. Why is it this way? Just some of the comments saying, gave up drinking and realised how many of my friends were just drinking buddies. Found out I had loads of drinking buddies and a handful of friends. I don't drink anymore, and you know the ones that give me the most hassle? My parents' generation in their 70s. Everyone else just nods and I get back to whatever it is I'm drinking. Most people around my own age either are pretty strict with the drink or just don't. So I feel for that guy who posted that, because you clearly have some pretty annoying people around you in your social life. If they just treat you so bad because you don't drink, At the same time, when I read that, I did have a memory flash in my mind. This was recently. So my football club that I play for, we have a clubhouse and it has a pub. So after the game, maybe like half the team will go socialise. And when I played for like the Vets team earlier this year, the whole like concept of the team was designed around going on the piss after the game because it's a Saturday league, right? So you can do that. So we went to the clubhouse. I've been a couple of times. I'm just like chilling. I'm not even drinking anything. I have like a Lucozade. Someone asked me like, do I not drink? Because I've been there a couple of times and I haven't ordered a beer. Most people have like 3 or 4 pints, and I'm like, no, I don't drink. Like, just don't really, can't be bothered anymore, basically. Like, I used to do it a lot when I was a younger teenager, and just kind of, don't want to. And the way they looked at me and kind of what they said to me afterwards, just in our conversation, I'm like, I'm getting the vibe that you think you're better than me because you drink, which is bizarre because I don't think I'm better than you because I don't drink. But why would you think you're better than me because you drink? Like he was saying that, they think you're some sort of weirdo. They genuinely do. A lot of people in this country, if you don't drink socially, they think you're weird. And they think you're like bad because of it. And one thing I would say to people is someone who has had so many of these questions now for years, oh, do you not drink? Why don't you drink? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm not like sober or anything. I just don't want to, generally. You just have to be confident and just be like, I don't want to. Don't be like timid or don't be pressured. Just be like, I don't want to. And sadly, you might find out some of your friends are just drinking friends, but hopefully they won't care. And a lot of people don't care, but then a lot of people get annoying because I guess it's a hangover, pun intended, of people thinking it's cool to drink when you're a teenager. And it's like an adult thing. The same way people think smoking is cool, right? They think it's still cool today and they're just like sad people, or maybe they're just people who wish they could stop but can't. And honestly, when some people tell me how much they drink, I'm just like, fucking hell, like that is so much. When you're drinking in the week on your own, again, I start to think someone has a problem, but in this country, it's not seen as a problem. Drinking all the time in the week on your own in this country, as long as you're not getting absolutely shit-faced every night, people don't think that's a sign of anything bad. Because in this country especially, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of colder, like Northern and Western European territories, we just normalize this so much. And it always depresses me. And, I've lived in Spain, I've lived in Vietnam, I've lived in Thailand, Cambodia, where the relationship to alcohol is different. I'm not saying, these are all like monks who don't drink and stuff, because some of it's pretty crazy in Asia as well. But what I do like is because of the climate, there is alternatives. So when I lived in Malaga, you could just go out and get like coffee and food at like 11 p.m. in the summer. When I went to Seville in like March, just for like a little weekend, you go out and everyone's just still eating and like drinking, but not in like a scummy way. And it just makes you so jealous that we can't have it in the UK. Because the one thing that I really, really hate about drinking in this country, beyond like a lot of the factors I've outlined, the antisocial behaviour it causes just makes you feel so unsafe at night. Because if you go out at 11 on a Saturday or Friday, I sometimes go for a walk at like 10 or something, you just might be met with a crowd of like absolutely shit-faced like people who've been watching the football. So you're guaranteed to get like a little bit of harassment, especially if they see you on your own. I mean, for me, I'm a tall guy, so maybe I feel a bit safer in that, but it's just not a pleasant thing. And also, it just leads to so many fights. Like one time, I was out with my friends, wasn't drinking. They went to a KFC afterwards. I didn't go in because there's usually trouble in the KFC because everyone piles in after the pub's shut. Some guy just runs up to me and punches me in the face. Like, don't know him, haven't spoke to him. I think he thought I was someone else. Some guy off his face runs up to me and punches me and my mate, like without even hesitating, before starting a fight with his other mates, right? And this is all caused by like this horrible drinking culture. And this is at like 11 p.m. in like a pretty popular place to like get the bus home or whatever. I compare that to being in Seville, and it's like, oh, I'm walking past people eating ice cream and drinking coffee at 11 p.m. and everyone's just chill, and there are a load of children out as well. In the UK, everyone wants to fight, or they're just singing football songs at each other. It is honestly like very, very bleak the way I'm describing it. If you're someone who dreams of coming to the UK and you live in a nice warm climate where you can actually do stuff other than drink at night, then I would say don't come here. And even, again, I spoke about like the Islam stuff. When I go to parts of London that are more Muslim, and you go there, and people are hanging out and not drinking, but it's late and they're doing other things, I just get so jealous that our culture is so preoccupied with drinking. I wish we cared more about like coffee culture and stuff, but no, everyone wants to just go out on the piss 24/7, even as you get older as well. And this is not helped by, I would say, basically a cocaine crisis now, because cocaine is insanely popular. Like, just sometimes you go out with people and it's not even for like a big night out, and then people are doing cocaine and you're like, why? Why are you doing this? Like, why do you have to do this now? Can you not just enjoy a night out with people you know, or like an extended social circle? In the UK, we just have to do everything so full on. You have to get 6 or 7 pints. You have to do drugs. You have to do all these things on a random night. Not even like a special occasion. Not even like New Year's Eve or like someone's 30th birthday. It's just absolutely crazy. And I really hate it. And the one thing I kept saying to my girlfriend, we lived abroad, I wish we could have this back home. I go to a Thai mall at night, like rooftop cafes. I go to, like I said, to Spain, and I'm like, could I just import this back home? Because I like it so much. I just wish my own like culture where I speak the language, I wish we had this and I could enjoy myself and relax at night, because I'm someone who likes going out at night. I like operating more like later. I don't get up early generally. So it's depressing we just can't have that here. But I know a lot of you guys are from different places around the world, so you might be asking, why is the UK particularly bad? Now with Ireland, I can't really speak to it, to be honest, because Ireland is a weird one to me, because it didn't go through the same process of industrialisation as the UK did. So you don't have that factor. A lot of Ireland is more rural. It does have industrialised centres, and obviously a lot of Irish people went to work in like Manchester, Liverpool, London. Like, that's, why I'm Irish, because all my grandparents came over here after the Second World War. So maybe that could link to it. But there was an interesting BBC Archive video I was watching. It was about porter, which porter, was popular in Ireland as well. But it just had this bar, right? And I can't play you the video because it's BBC and they'll just copyright claim my video. But they would set out like porter all across the bar, like ready. Because what would happen after these manual labourers who worked at a factory, they'd all pour into the pub every single night to drink loads of porter. And when I watched this, it just reminded me how terrible the working conditions used to be. Like, my granddad used to work like in a factory and stuff, and just probably led to his early death because the conditions were so terrible. What he was breathing in was so terrible. And luckily he wasn't a drinker. But it was so socially acceptable back then. If you work a hard job as a man, you're going to go to a pub afterwards. You might not get shit-faced because your tolerance is so high, but you're definitely going to, be drinking a couple pints at the very least before going home. England especially, and especially the north of England, has been ravaged by capitalism in a way that many countries never were. Talking about the squalor, talking about this urbanisation, all these factories, everything that made Britain like the global superpower was basically built on the backs of British people, migrant workers and slaves, all forced into these conditions. But just an article about how this still affects England today by The Guardian in 2019, and back then it was 40% less alcohol deaths. It's now increased massively. How Britain's post-industrial cities got hooked on booze. So post-industrial cities such as Newcastle, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester and Nottingham dominate the latest university rankings of best cities for nightlife. They have some of the highest densities of pubs and bars per square kilometre, and the most recent Public Health England figures suggest that those densities are increasing every year and much faster than the national average. Those same cities tend also to be the ones with the highest rates of alcohol-related injuries. Those rates are increasing too, again at a faster rate than the national average. A University of Sheffield study published in August found that places with the most pubs, bars and nightclubs had a 13% higher hospital admissions rate for acute conditions caused by alcohol than places with the lowest density of such establishments. These pubs, bars and nightclubs are the engine of the nighttime economy, on which Britain's struggling post-industrial cities and towns are becoming ever more dependent. In many ways, it is itself a hangover from the past. The great industrial cities of the 19th century Britain were saturated with beer houses, gin palaces and pubs, and in Newcastle, drinking patterns formed around the working lives of shipbuilders and coal miners who finished their last shifts at 1 p.m. on a Saturday and then went to the pub and drank away their wages until closing time. Now, with heavy industry gone, these cities are left with their reputation as party towns. Newcastle City Council estimates its nighttime economy accounts for 7,000 jobs and £500 million of revenue, with 17 million visitors a year, more than a few of them on stag or hen parties. But protecting this reputation comes at a price. You don't need a Lancet subscription to know the links between alcohol and health issues. The alcohol-related mortality rate in Newcastle has risen in the last 5 years from 48 to 61 per 100,000 people, with the English average being 46. So when I was reading that about Newcastle, it did remind me of like Dublin, because Dublin is also very popular for stag do's because it has a reputation for drinking, right? So what these like industrialized places have left is, well, you know, we don't have the industry anymore, so you're not coming here for jobs. So come here for the great drinking culture that was created by capitalist hell like 100 years ago. I do find that funny how it's like a literal hangover from industrialization and capitalist exploitation. But just generally, now I'm thinking about like, what is a solution to England's drinking culture and drinking problems? And again, because I'm so well-travelled, I'm so worldly, a lot of people say that England's drinking culture is a result of everything closing early as well, right? So most places in the UK, you can't really go to anything that isn't like a restaurant or a bar after 5, 6 p.m, especially in the winter. So if I wanted to go get a coffee at 8 p.m, I pretty much couldn't get one anywhere apart from maybe a central London Starbucks that's open late. I'm not going to Starbucks, obviously, at the moment, or a McDonald's. And that's pretty much it. Like, you can't go out for coffee anywhere. Maybe there'll be a dessert place open, like in my old uni town, there was a couple dessert shops open to 11. But again, people say, well, it's too cold, people don't want to do this. But when I went to Seoul, South Korea, it was freezing, like really cold, probably like nearing, I don't know what it would be, 5 degrees. And I went out all night and there was like food stalls open to like 11, loads of places open, like cafes and everything. And I'm like, there is literally no excuse in the UK to not have something similar. Look how cold it is here and everyone's still out. So what is this excuse that because it's cold in the UK a lot of the year that we can't go out late at night to do other things that aren't drinking? And I'd say part of the solution to changing the drinking culture is there's plenty of people now, more than ever, who don't want to drink. But there's nothing for us to do in a nice environment away from the people who want to drink at night. So I would love it if there were more like maybe non-alcoholic bars or just cafes I could go to later at night and just chill. But there's nowhere. And also because we give over our high street so much at night to the pubs and the drinking culture, you don't really want to be out at that time, because if you're just sober going about your business, like I've experienced myself, there's a high chance you might be harassed by drunk people, or, you know, even worse, like it's happened in my case. Obviously not all the time, but it doesn't exactly create a nice environment for people when we give over our cities and towns to pubs, nightclubs, and fast food restaurants where loads of drunk people just funnel in afterwards. Just creates a pretty terrible culture. So I'd say generally, I think a lot of the alcoholism in this country and the socially acceptable like amount of alcoholism, and maybe think people wouldn't even consider themselves alcoholics, I think that's, you know, a result of capitalism and a history of industrialization. But I do think at the moment it's also exacerbated by economic conditions. So of course you want to tackle all of them, but I think culturally we just need to imagine the UK a bit differently, where not everything fucking shuts at 6 p.m, where we can actually go and do stuff, you know, socially after that time and not have to drink and not have to be around people who want to drink and create a more like chilled vibe. And it seems to me the only places you can do that are like places that have more of like an Islamic influenced culture, where obviously most of them don't drink, so you do have more coffee shops and dessert shops. But obviously most of England is still majority white, and we just don't have that coffee culture like other cultures. So I would like to see that expanded. Will it happen? No. England is just depressing and bleak, so the drinking will continue. The spice will continue to flow in England. Don't worry about that. That is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.